a marvelous bird indeed. It's been quite a while since I've had a good sighting of a ground hornbill. One of the most endangered birds in... Oh, there's another one. Hello. I didn't even see that one until it ran across the road. The most extraordinary large bird. There's about... The reason we get so excited when we see them is that there's about 1,400 left in the world. Their numbers are slowly increasing, but that essentially equates to somewhere around 400, maybe, breeding females. So a critically endangered bird, and one daker, if you spotted that, well done. One daker watching its progress, and ours, with consternation, head bobbing about behind the grasses there. And these two ground hornbill on the search for various snake species, caterpillars, any kind of arthropod, centipedes and millipedes, all will fall victim to those powerful beaks. And they really are the most extraordinary birds. There's a lot of reasons why they are as endangered as they are, and I'm going to try and get us a little bit closer to the one that crossed further ahead of us. You should actually be able to stop and look at their tracks as well, for those of you building up on your tracking scrapbook. So let's just go nice and slowly. Jeandre will keep an eye out for the hornbill. Never mind. It's probably going to be as good a visual. Let's go forward a bit. Just so you know, I'm on Buffelshoek Cut Line, which is our northern boundary. The track's not terribly distinct in the sandy soil.
Oh, sorry.
Further. Oh, there he is. I can't actually see. There we go. Behind that bush is where the ground hornbill is hidden. You see its head bobbing about there. That looks like a male. The puffiness of the red skin around the face. Males, that's a lot more prominent than it is on the females. Females also have a little blue patch underneath their chins. It's been really wonderful over the last few weeks to see as many ground hornbills as we have. Deborah commenting about the way in which the ground hornbill walks, and has suggested watching them walk doesn't really give you an inkling as to how beautiful and graceful they look in flight. And they are very powerful flyers despite their size and their bulk. Look at his head going from side to side, searching for any opportunities to grab something in the grass. And Deborah, I know what you mean, although I actually quite like their walk. There's something very measured, if I could put it that way, about the steps that they take. Considered and measured. Predatory. It takes a ground hornbill up to 7 years to reach sexual maturity and to breed. Here comes the second. Is one of the reasons why their numbers haven't recovered in the way that we would like them to in terms of conservation goals. It takes them 7 years to reach sexual maturity. They're also exceptionally picky nesters. In other words, they prefer to, or they want a particular type of nest site, whether it be in a marula, a jackalberry, or a leadwood, one of the larger tree species, and they prefer to use that nest site year after year. And if that nest site is destroyed, whether it's from lightning, whether it be elephants pushing it over, it does take them a good 2 or 3 years before they feel ready to breed again. Their offspring, they have incredibly complex social structures. their offspring will stick around for years at a time, at least 1 year, to help their parents with raising the next set of chicks before heading off and dispersing of their own accord. So, Dacre and the the little Dacre, and I think that hornbill is going to wander across into view in a moment. There we go. Oh, found something there. In terms of threats, obviously human beings being the largest for a ground hornbill. Lucy in South Bend, Indiana, was wondering, would a leopard ever tackle a ground hornbill? And yes, they absolutely would. There is a good chance of a leopard tackling. And in fact, I actually really think something's ringing bells about a clip that somebody filmed in Kruger a couple of weeks ago of a leopard hunting ground hornbills. So generally, leopards are opportunists. So unlike lions that will target larger prey because they're group feeders, they're group hunters, and they would prefer to have a large meal to share amongst each other. With leopards, they don't really get that picky at all. So yes, I've never personally seen a leopard hunt a ground hornbill, but I have seen videos of it, so they will hunt them. And because they're such big, bulky birds, have you spotted them, or are you looking at sunrise there, Jeandre? Sunrise. Because they are such big, bulky birds, it actually makes them quite slow in terms of their response time. Although, unfortunately, I think at this point they have escaped us. They've moved further north outside of our traverse area, so we can move on a little bit. Still checking very carefully for anywhere that these leopard tracks come out. So Lucy, yes, they will be hunted by leopards. Obviously their highest time of mortality is when they are young, so the chicks have a very, very high mortality rate. And the last chick, because I used to work in a research facility, the last chick that I was helping to monitor actually was lost to either a leopard or a caracal. We knew exactly where the nest site was. We used to go once a week and just attach a camera to a pole just to check that the chick was doing okay, and then remove it and move on. We didn't disturb them hugely, and hornbill chicks can be incredibly feisty and aggressive. What you seeing there, Jeandre?
All the tracks coming in. All of them.
All right. There's also lots and lots of hyena tracks backwards and forwards at this junction. Let's head over to James, who's found a different type of bird.
So we have not found Karula and her cubs, but we have found a very agitated Egyptian goose. The source of its consternation is not immediately apparent. It was swimming peacefully in this little waterhole. We're at Treehouse Dam at the moment, and then it kind of got upset. Its partner got upset, started quacking at it, and so they flew off and did a sort of quite impressive flight around the area and then landed in that tree. And I was hoping that they were perhaps alarm calling and shouting at the sight of a mother kitty and her two youngsters. But I see nothing yet. I am surveying the area with a very powerful set of binoculars, but unfortunately I do not see the dappled spots of either two cubs or an adult female. Oh, here's an interesting one, because the question is a good one, because somebody was trying to be amusing the other day. I forget exactly who it was. Yes, it was Connor, our erstwhile technical genius. Monkey Man, you say, do we get pelicans here? He spotted a duck the other day and said, oh, pelican. This is because Connor is an engineer and not a biologist and doesn't know the difference. But Monkey Man, you want to know if we do get pelicans here? We do not. It wouldn't surprise me if there'd been one or two records of a pelican flying over. We get two species here, pink-backed pelican and the white pelican, and they need larger bodies of water, basically. But it wouldn't surprise me on one of their migratory flights whether they had stopped off every so often in this particular area, just sort of for a night or two, and then disappeared again. I seem to remember in the dim recesses of my memory hearing of a pelican arriving in the Sabi Sands. Now that, of course, is the same for any area. You will have a certain amount of what we call vagrants, or animals or birds that come into an area very briefly for just a very short time, and then they fly off again, and they still become part of the bird list. See, I'm consulting the area with these powerful binoculars, but unfortunately I see nothing. Let's continue up this way, and then we will have done a circle of the block, and if we don't find anything, we'll continue. Brent Leo Smith is hailing me on the radio. 1 second. Go ahead. I didn't copy that. I'm going to do one more loop here, and then I'll head that way. Look at that bird. They always look so deeply troubled by life. And this is wonderful camera work. Here comes the other one. Almost a mid-air collision. Doesn't want to land on that thorny knobthorn tree. No, they're gone. They've decided that's it. Treehouse Dam is not for them. That's wonderful stuff. Look at them flying into the sun there. Ah, that's beautiful. Gee whiz. Very nice, Brian. Beautiful, in fact. I mean, that is really, really stunning. Okay, let's carry on. So, ex-Ranger, you've obviously been watching for a while, and you want to know if Bryan takes requests for the thumb. And Bryan, ex-Ranger wants you to put a mullet on the back end of your thumb. Are you prepared to do that?
I'll put a mullet on the thumb.
Okay, ex-Ranger, we'll put a mullet on. I think you watch in the mornings. I'm not sure if you watch in our evenings. So we'll get Bryan to attach a mullet to the back of his thumb tomorrow. If you don't know what a mullet is, everybody, a mullet is something that I would be able to grow at this stage. It is a piece of hair that grows out of the back of your head, where you keep the top short and then sort of long out the back. And that, of course, is associated largely with trailer parks and other such sophisticated places. Megan, you want to know what ducks those were? They were Egyptian geese. Now, we call them geese, but they're not actually true geese. True geese tend to have slightly different characteristics, and so they're called Egyptian geese. Now, around this area, there have been lots of elephants over the course of the night. And that means that they will have obliterated just about any tracks that there would have been on the road. And so it's not going to be easy to tell where Karula went. We're obviously not going to push to try and sort of find her. So if we do find her, it's wonderful. But we're not going to do a great deal of knocking about the place if she's trying to be secretive, because that is her want as the mother of two young little leopards. Very good idea of hers to hoist the kill, and we certainly had no indication yesterday that the cubs were around. So she may well have just fed quickly and then disappeared back down south. But we'll keep an eye out here. Just getting some updates from Cheetah Plains, where apparently there are some cheetah, but they are about to cross onto Mala Mala, so I don't think we're going to rush there just yet, because we're quite a long way from there. Now, Bugsy, you seem to be under the impression that hyenas will regurgitate food for their youngsters, and you want to know if leopards do the same thing. Bugsy, hyenas don't do that for their youngsters. Hyenas will bring food back to the den or take cubs to the food. They do not regurgitate for their youngsters, and they specifically do not. Leopards do not either. The only animals that I know of that do that are wild dogs. So only the dogs. I think jackals probably also do it for their pups, but wild dogs are basically the only ones that will regurgitate significant amounts of food for their young puppies as they start to wean. And interestingly, there's that wonderful story, and I don't know how much of it has been documented, to the eternal discredit of the owners of the land. That story in Botswana of a wild dog female who didn't have a pack, and so she kind of made her own pack with 2 black-backed jackals. And the black-backed jackals had babies, and what the wild dog would do would go off and hunt. And the black-backed jackal pups learned to beg from the wild dog female, and she would go off and do her thing, kill, she'd come back and she'd regurgitate, just like she would for wild dog puppies, to those jackals. It's an amazing, amazing story. So I think you'll find that it is much more a characteristic of the canids or dogs than it is, well, it certainly isn't a characteristic of the felids or the hyenidae. Thank you, Bugsy, for clearing that up for us. I am driving very, very slowly, of course, as we try and see if there are any tracks here, but there are elephant tracks everywhere, so I'm not holding out a great deal of hope at this stage. And we'll just decide shortly whether we're going to make the trip to Cheetah Plains, because there have been some cheetah, but they do seem like they're going to cross to the south, to Mala Mala, and it is quite a long way to go. But it is a worth way to go if they're a cheetah. And a very good question from Chris in Arizona, while I say it's quite far away. You want to know how far Cheetah Plains is from the DRC. Now, Chris, of course, is not referring to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He is referring to the place where we live, which is called the Juma Research Camp. Chris, as the crow flies, it's not that far. As the crow flies, probably about 10 kilometers or 6 miles. But to drive there is about a 25-minute drive from home to there. Well, to the area where the cheetah would be, in those open areas on the far eastern side. So, I mean, it can absolutely be worthwhile. And it's certainly not too far to go, but, yep, I'm not sure at this stage if we'll go. I'm going to do one more drive down this road. If there are no tracks, then I think we probably will start heading towards the east and see if we can't find out whether those cheetah have crossed or not. I'll just quickly show you where she had the kill and see if there's anything left there, or show you what is left, which is not much. And you can see bits and pieces of leaves and branches on the road. That is from elephants that have crisscrossed over the road throughout the course of the night. We found some lion tracks, but even they had been obliterated by the elephants, so really very difficult to see any kinds of tracks. That is a fork-tailed drongo, and we talk about them a lot, but we can often look at them flying away, obviously. Thankfully, we have the world's greatest bird film fellow. Sorry, I had a bit of gas got caught in me. Oh! The Egyptian geese just flew over the top. An Aaron, while we seem to be sitting in a bit of a bird party here, none of the birds being particularly confiding. So I've just watched some blue waxbills. I saw a crested barbet fly over. There were some fork-tailed drongos, a red-billed buffalo weaver, none of which are easy for you to see. They've all kind of flown off. Aaron, you want to know what the most common bird we see is? The most common bird that we see, I don't know. What do you think, Bryan? Drongo is pretty common. We see lots of fork-tailed drongos, lots of hornbills, yeah, and starlings probably. So somewhere between the starlings, the hornbills, and the drongos probably. Right, so the little gardenia tree that she had a kill in was just down here. We'll just keep an eye out on the ground. And I may have forgotten already where it was. Somewhere in here, wasn't it, Bryan? Have we gone past it already? I don't think we've gone past it. You think we've gone past it? Ah, never mind. There wasn't. Oh. Is this not it here? No. Yeah, it's still worth doing a little drive down here just to see, and then we'll head east. There's a gardenia tree that she had stashed it in. A very clever tree, of course, because it was thick, full of leaves. I'm sure she's in these thickets, you know, lurking, watching us drive past, thinking, silly fellows, they can't see us. It's this tree here. It's this very tree. So we'll just drive off the road a little bit here, and I'll show you what is left. Oh, there's a nasty sniff in the air here, isn't there, Bryan? Do you see anything? No. I can't see anything either. I was told that there was a piece left hanging here, but there is a very smelly smell around. Something, well, we know something died. You got it. Forward, back?
No, back a little bit.
Can you see anything? I thought there was something in there too. Anyway, this is where it was, everyone. There is a very vile stink about the place. There was a leg, apparently, and a piece of horn. So we'll turn around, head to the south, see if she's crossed the southern boundary, and then head off in an easterly direction. I'm still looking, hopefully, all around. I suppose she wouldn't actually be here, you know. With the smell like this, she'd move away. Now, Richard, you're in New Zealand, and you ask a very valid question because there have been elephants all over here for the whole morning. And you want to know if an elephant would kill a leopard, basically. If the elephants came across the cubs, would they kill them? Richard, I mean, the answer is possibly yes, they would, but they wouldn't go out of their way to. So if they smell predators, or if they smell death like that, they do get a little upset, and certainly they will chase lions. They don't like to be around leopards. Leopards much less so than lions and hyenas, but they don't like to be around them, but they wouldn't actively seek out to kill the cubs. Whereas a hyena, obviously, if a hyena came across here and knew that there were leopards around with cubs, then absolutely the hyena would actively seek to try and kill those cubs. But an elephant, no. If, however, the cubs were or didn't move, or perhaps they were, for some stupid reason, trying to pretend to stalk the elephants, then, yes, I mean, then the elephants might push home some sort of attack. But no, elephants will not, by default, kill predators other than lions. They will chase lions if they find them. But, yeah, not so much the case. There's a track. I saw one track of her heading down this way. And it sounds like those cheetahs have crossed out of cheetah plains at this stage. So I don't know if we'll go there. We might. We're going to head east for a little bit and just see if anything else is going on the southern boundary. Saw one track there, but it's not easy, this game. It's not easy, this tracking game. Nothing obvious. There's a hyena moving there. Just listening. Just some lion tracks being called in. We look very carefully at this junction. This is the junction that she's been sort of crossing in and out of Juma on. There she is. There are her tracks coming out. I'll try and show them to you. Well, there you can see them there, Bryan. There's ones there. You see them? I'm afraid I've lost a picture on my... No, there we go. That's the leopard track. But that's her coming back this way, so maybe that was yesterday. Very difficult to tell, of course, with all the vehicle tracks going up and down. Anyway, you can hear the morning has quietened down slightly. All you can hear is the black-headed oriole going. Okay. Let's head east for a little while. See what we can find this way. And just, I mean, I know I kind of say this all the time, but this grass is too stunning for me in the mornings. And I took numerous photographs of it the other day, much to the amusement of my colleagues who, you know, they kind of, what should we say, cynically call me the greatest landscape photographer in the world. This is because I'm actually surprisingly poor as a photographer for somebody who spent so much time in wilderness areas. But I take lots of photographs of this grass in the shining morning sun. It is starting to heat up quite nicely now. In case you're wondering, Jamie is off her vehicle, it seems. She's doing quite a lot of tracking. Just seem to be going past a great conflagration of vehicles here. We'll pull off the road. And I'll answer Caesar Senior Gold's question now. A very good one from you, Caesar Senior Gold, about the propagation of trees. Let us just greet these fellows and say hello to them. Good morning. How are you all? Good, good. Have you found anything of great import?
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
right.
I've lost him on
Okay, going? North? West? Okay, cool. Okay, good luck. Enjoy. Next one along. Avshid. Nikomi Jani. Morning. How's it going? What have you seen today? Nothing. Lot of tracks. Oh, bad luck. That is a substantial piece of equipment on the back of your car there.
What?
No, that flash.
The flash?
Yes.
Oh, it's a better beamer.
Oh, a better beamer.
Yeah, it throws the light out further, concentrates the light.
Okay.
It's a Fresnel lens that
Right.
magnifies the beam.
Well, I hope you find something to point at it.
Yeah.
See you later. I don't know if any of you saw that. Did you see it, Bryan? No. It was this very sort of elaborate construction on the edge of the flash that apparently is used to concentrate light. Maybe I should get one of those. It might improve my photography, Bryan. What do you think? Do you think there's nothing that can improve my photography?
No, your photography is top class.
All right, so they've driven down this road, found no more tracks, so let's drive a little bit quicker. Now, Jeandre Gold, you want to know how it is that the trees propagate here. Do they grow from the base, or do they seed and pollinate like normal plants? Jeandre Gold, they do both, basically. If they are damaged badly, say by elephants or by fire, they will coppice or grow from the base. And that's why you get so many multi-stemmed trees. Here is a very good example here. Here's a tree that is growing multi-stemmed from the base, and you'll find that's because it's been broken many times by elephants. And if trees weren't able to propagate by growing from the base like that, they would die, because the elephants out here do enjoy eating them very much and have to eat them. So that's the story with those. But most of the trees here are standard issue flowering plants. So they're angiosperms, which means that they do flower. They produce flowers in the same way that trees anywhere else in the world do, and they therefore produce seeds. And those seeds are distributed either by wind, or like in the case of that tree we just looked at, that's a combretum tree, and it makes a 4-winged fruit. And that is sent around by the wind. Otherwise, you get something like a marula tree, which produces a very sweet fruit, and those seeds are dispersed by elephants and other animals that like to eat them. So it's pretty standard, really, same as angiosperms or flowering plants throughout the world. Thank you, Jeandre Gold. Very nice question there about the trees. I always like to get tree questions because it means we can stop and show you what we're talking about immediately. Because trees, of course, Bryan, they don't move anywhere, do they? No, they stay static, which is always much easier to find. Just going to get an update on those cheetah and find out if it is going to be worth us driving across there. Ephraim, do you copy? Are those two animals still on CP, or have they crossed south? Okay, copy. Confirm you think they did cross south into Mala Mala? Okay, copy, thanks. Yeah, they were inside Mala Mala, I'm afraid. So let's just drive along here. We don't have to go all the way to Cheetah Plains along this road. We'll see if there's some other tracks maybe. Might be worth taking this road here, actually. All right, we're going to fossick about here a little bit longer and then make a decision as to where we're going to go. While we're doing that and prevaricating, let's go across, get an update from Jamie.
James figures out whether or not he's going to make it across to Cheetah Plains before the animals that he's thinking about have crossed further to the south into Mala Mala. I'm still following up on the leopard tracks. I went for a little bit of a walk in the block, stood on some termite mounds, tried to guess the route that the leopard might have taken as he wandered through. I haven't had any luck, so I'm searching further afield, and maybe I've missed the tracks where they've come out. The elephants that walked over, I've got them. Oh, these are lions. This is the lions from last night. This is the Birmingham boys walking up towards Gari Gate before apparently they crossed further east and back towards the Boyatella Dam. Lots of paw prints everywhere. It's just figuring out where each individual animal is gone. Brent's currently following lion tracks. He's located the elephants that walked all over our tracks. Now, while Brent is searching searching for those Birmingham boys, and we're of course keeping our eyes out for them as well. Sandra was wondering if a lion was too sick to hunt, if they were feeling too weak to hunt, would the other lions share their kills with him? And the answer is yes. And in fact, his best bet would be to move about with a group of females, with a pride, because even ill, a male lion is an intimidating thing for a group of females. So chances are they would be quite easily, not removed from their kill, but quite easily pushed off it initially for him to feed on. Lions and their social dynamics are a fascinating thing. Where I used to work, there was a pair of females known as the Tembe females. The Tembe females had been introduced to this particular area from a reserve known as Tembe all the way in KwaZulu-Natal. And when they first arrived, they were young. They were probably about 2 years old. It was just two sisters. And initially, one of them, for whatever reason, whether she got ill from the shock of the transport or whatever happened, or she was injured, she was very, very thin and very weak when she first arrived. And the two of them stuck together. It was phenomenal to watch. You'd watch the sister walk forward and the other one struggle behind her, limp behind her. How's it, man? How are you? Yeah, they've gone all the way east to the dam.
Oh, really?
And then we've lost their track somewhere there.
Oh,
so we're going to follow up. I'm trying to see, Tingana's moved up here as well. But I'm just trying to see if he's crossed.
Through Catline South 34. You want to turn towards the road 7 side there.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. Hi, guys. All right. I haven't checked all the way up, but Lutu, that's right. Nothing at cities.
Okay.
All right. Okay, well, that answers our question about the leopard that we're tracking. He has walked all the way across, which is what I suspected, was that I might have missed the track somewhere underneath the elephants. He's walked all the way across Arathusa and into Elephant Plains, so west of our boundary. So that was that update. Back to my story about those lionesses. The one female did all of the hunting in that period where her sister was ill. She would walk forward, stop and lie down and wait for her sister to come to her, or else she would go back and go and nuzzle her sister and then collect her and walk with her as her sister limped along. It was one of the most touching interactions that I've seen between lions. They only knew each other. They were introduced into a strange area and they stuck together, and the one looked after the other. So yes, that Birmingham boy the males are less likely to be as indulgent, if I can put it that way, of an injured male. But at the same time, that male, as long as he sticks with the rest of the coalition, he will be fine and he will be fed. I think let's make our way. Now that we know that our leopard has crossed out, let's make our way further to the south. Go follow up on those elephants and help Brent out with the lions. So yes, lions within their dynamics that's one of their biggest strengths. It's one of the things that's made them an apex predator out here, is the fact that they do have that very, very strong social bond. This is a veritable thoroughfare, this one. Giddy's wondering if this Birmingham boy was to die, would the body be collected and examined by the managerial experts and the vets of this area? And the answer is yes. That is what would happen. They would double check to see exactly. They investigate every death, even if it's an explained death. For example, with that hoopoe female that was killed by the Birmingham boys, the vets were still called in to do an autopsy, just to get a little bit of an idea, for example, if she was carrying TB, what contributed to her death. Here we've got everybody checking along this road this morning. How's it all?
Good, what's up?
Good, thanks. Hi, guys.
Yeah, we got the message. There's a one more brother and brother crossing.
We cross now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm coming that side. I'll go around again. Double check. All right. Cheers. I'm going to send you back over to James, who has a bird, and I'll carry on the search for our big cats.
I think we're live, everybody. Sorry, a couple of communications issues we've got going here. That, everyone, is a martial eagle. The largest eagle in all the land. Rivaled only sort of by the crowned eagle in size, but he inhabits forests largely, and that is the sort of largest eagle of the plains and savannas. And we were chatting a little bit earlier about dangers that possibly face Karula's cubs. Well, a martial eagle would certainly take a cub if it could. They would be unafraid of doing something like that, but I think much more likely that he's looking around for a tree or rock monitor. That's the kind of favorite meal for a martial eagle, a large tree or rock monitor lizard. But they'll also eat francolins, guinea fowl, ibises, small bustards even, i.e. something like the red-crested korhaan or the black-bellied bustard. And they're such successful sort of predators that they live in these areas that are, well, territory sizes of about 15,000 hectares. So that's about 35,000 acres for one pair of martial eagles. Yeah, I've definitely got a major communications breakdown going here. Rebecca, would you like to just quickly talk, if you wouldn't mind? Yeah, you see, we've got nothing, I'm afraid. Don't know if I'm live. This is a disaster. Anyway, everybody, you enjoy the bird. I think I'm talking to you still. It's 4.7 kilograms in mass, which is fairly large. And interestingly, that's the female. The male is smaller, at about 3.5 kilograms. And the wingspan up to 2.4 meters. There we go, Rebecca, I got that last one. Wingspan up to 2.5 meters. That's about 10 feet. So there we go, we've got Rebecca back, everyone. Thank goodness. Isn't that a beautiful bird? And probably a male. The female is more spotted underneath than that. And the only other bird you could really confuse it with would be a black-breasted snake eagle, much smaller, although that's obviously difficult to tell at this sort of distance. That bird's about 3 feet tall. A black-breasted snake eagle, but smaller, and also doesn't have the wings quite as dark, and certainly very white wings underneath. And you may also be able to hear the alarm calling of the squirrels and the lories around here. The lories are going, or the grey go-away birds are going, wah, wah. And the squirrels are going, chee, 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 chee. I'm going to ask Bryan to do a squirrel call. He's probably better at it than me. Bryan?
Squirrel call?
Yeah, it's a squirrel alarm call. That is exactly what it sounds like. Well done.
Thank you.
Bryan does a very passable squirrel, an excellent ground hornbill, and his impression of Popeye the Sailor Man is unrivaled the world over. Now, I did hear about some elephants up this road, so we're going to head that way and see if we can't find them further up here. That is Popeye you can hear there. Yeah, we're still... Ooh, there's actually a better picture there of him. him there. Ellen, you're interested in how they compare in size with the bald eagle. My impression of the bald eagle is that it is not a small sparrow-like bird. I don't know exactly how big it is. I think it's probably a very similar size to the bald eagle. So a very big one, like I say, almost 3 feet tall. Yeah, probably sort of closer to 2 foot 6 to 10 would be the sort of tallness. And then big female, 5 kilograms or 4.5 kilograms, which in pounds works to just over 10 pounds, 10 or 11 pounds for a big female. And like I say, the wingspan for a big female, 2.5 meters, 2.5 meters, which is, well, let's just multiply it quickly. Hang on, everybody. I'm just going to do my imperial conversions here. 6 feet, 7 feet, yeah, almost 10 feet. So I think the bald eagle might be slightly smaller. Of course, the closest relative to the bald eagle here is the fish eagle that we get, and a fish eagle is definitely smaller than your bald eagle. So perhaps those of you who are living in the continental United States will be able to tell us how big the bald eagle is in comparison with the dimensions I've just given you for the martial eagle. And Andrew and Julie, an interesting one that, I mean, is quite an amusing question in that it isn't. You want to know if they would ever attack human beings. Definitely not an adult human being, that would be too big. The largest prey that a martial eagle like that will take would be a baby impala. They might then, yeah, it would take a baby impala. It would certainly take a domestic dog, if of the right size, and there are apocryphal stories, and well, some of them not so apocryphal, some of them absolutely true, of similarly sized eagles taking dogs out of gardens in rural areas and that sort of thing. But a martial, not so much a danger to a child, but a crowned eagle, which is specialized, well, it's kind of specialized to kill monkeys. Well, I would be afraid of leaving a child in an area where I knew there were crowned eagles, and by child I mean sort of toddler, under the age of 3 or so. Then they might be in danger, and there certainly have been ancient human remains found of small skulls with holes in the back of the skull there. And that, of course, would have been made by the talons of a crowned eagle grabbing the skull and then squeezing through, and that's how they would kill their monkey prey. So, yes, very small children, crowned eagle, maybe a martial eagle. I mean, I certainly wouldn't leave a small child playing with a martial eagle, but it's unlikely that they would ever harm human beings. Certainly, an adult is too big. But, I mean, you do get people who do this falconry malarkey, which is the sport of flying birds of prey, and if they're not often people, you know, they do it normally with falcons, but often people will find a sort of orphaned eagle and they'll raise them and they'll do falconry with a big eagle. And you do hear of people that own martial eagles, and I mean, the bird has to sit on a piece of leather like that on the wrist, because if they don't, they are so powerful in the tarsals, the tarsal muscles, which create that kind of clamping movement that their talons make. They're so powerful that if just the slightest squeeze on a human arm will snap the bone. So they're just massively powerful. They can do tremendous damage. And there, Bryan, just sitting warming in the sun, is a lilac-breasted roller. Isn't that nice? And he's just having a little sun after the chilly evening. Now, there are tracks all over the place, everybody, of male lions, of male cheetahs, all sorts of things, and it seems to be so much choice at the moment, and so often with what happens here is that we don't find anything because we don't know, you know, people are just looking everywhere all the time. Sorry, I got a little confused there as the dimensions of the bald eagle came into my ear from Jeandre. Thank you, Jeandre. You say a big female bald eagle, 90 inches wingspan. Now, That in feet, if we now divide it by 12, you see, this is why the imperial system is just a disaster for me. 90 divided by 12, Bryan, is? Just under 8, because 96, right, is just under 8. So 8 feet tall, so yeah, roughly the same size as a marshal. So a very big marshal eagle might be slightly bigger than a very big bald eagle, but roughly the same size as each other. Thank you very much for that, Jeandre. Now, what I was mumbling about the tracks were that Brent is around, he's on tracks, Jamie's on tracks, we were looking for tracks, and so often when there are tracks all over the place, we find nothing. And I'm not sure why that is, but it's just the way it seems to be. And most of the time when we have an amazing day of sightings, it's blind luck that's got us in there. I think there's some elephants up ahead here, if I'm not mistaken. There's certainly a vehicle up ahead. We were hoping to see some, there is an elephant, marvelous stuff. There we go, everybody. There's a big herd of elephants there. Sorry, I hit a stump that resulted in us stopping. They just seem to be grazing slowly towards us here, through this thicket. That's a youngster, about 4 years old. They're both sides of the road, you know. Let's just wait and see what they do. I just want to sort of get a general impression of where they are moving. It's always a nice thing when you find the first sort of real sighting of the day. Bit of a relief. Not so, Bryan. And the heat is built quite quickly this morning. It's certainly not hot, but it's not cool anymore. And that kind of change in the atmosphere from that early morning expectation. There's an elephant under that tree. Has changed more to a kind of peaceful time. Hello, Crypto Frankie. You say this is your first time watching a live stream outdoors and your first time on this particular stream, and you say it's nice. Well, I think it's very nice as well, and we're very glad to have you along for the ride. Please tell your friends, your family, and homeless people you might find in the street about us, because it would be lovely to share this with as many people around the world as possible. And in case you're wondering, Crypto Frankie, this is coming to you live from the Kruger National Park in South Africa, at the southern tip of the great continent of Africa. And it's wonderful to have you along. Please keep asking us questions and giving us comments. It'd be good to hear from you again. So the rest of the herd is sort of in here, and so I'm going to ease our way in there and see if we can't get a better view of the rest of them. They look pretty relaxed. In we go. Now these, I don't know if you can see on the ground, Bryan, if you wouldn't mind, these beautiful white flowers which smell like diesel. I was told by one of our viewers, Judy H., who's a resident botanist, that they are called the dwarf cat's whisker. Dwarf cat's whisker, or Clerodendron tornadum. And they're very pretty and disgusting smelling. They're horrible, hey, Bryan? Let me just ease our way in here. I don't want to make too much noise. Hello, Crypto Frankie again, and you want to know, a 4-year-old elephant is that big? Yes, a 4-year-old elephant is enormous. An elephant at birth, Crypto Frankie, is 220 pounds. That one's now a little bit nervous, so we're just going to go out into the open where they can see us properly. There we go. Now, Mark, you're watching thinking, what kind of trees are they eating? Well, they're eating basically bush willow, but very few of them are eating. Look, 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 look. That one's eating that disgusting smelling flower. Ugh. That's horrifying, Brian.
It is.
The smell is really, it's like imagine sucking on a rag soaked in diesel. That's what that will taste like. It's very interesting. So, Mark, that's what those are. That's what those ones are eating. But elephants have a Catholic diet, so they eat lots of different kinds of herbaceous material. They don't eat a lot of trees if they can avoid it. So in the dry season, they eat trees, and there's bush willows that was shaking there. That's a red bush willow that was shaking. That is a favorite in the wintertime, especially the roots. They'll push them over and chew on the roots of those trees and also eat the young twigs and bark. But at this time of the year, you can see most of them are grazing. They're trying to eat the leaves and stalks of the grass, and obviously the fairly vile-smelling dwarf cat's whisker is something of a favorite with these young elephants. There's a bigger cow coming through there. Take off my jacket as the heat builds. This is a common legend, of course, that elephants are the only mammals in the world that cannot jump. And Shellbell, you want me to confirm or deny whether this is in fact true. Shellbell, an elephant cannot jump, no, and it cannot run either. It's because it can't jump. So when you are running, if you are a runner, you might not be, but I'm sure you were at one stage of your life. When a human being runs, or any other animal runs, it leaves the ground every so often. So if you're running along, basically you are spending some time in the air. The elephant power walks. So if you ever watched a power walker or a speed walker, it's a slightly ridiculous looking thing when people do it, but basically it means that their feet, one foot's got to be in contact with the ground at any one time, and that's how elephants move. They don't run, and I think it's because they're so heavy, and it just would put too much strain on their joints and their bones. But interestingly, just smaller than them, well, I mean, quite about half the size, a big white rhino bull is about 2.5 tons, 2,500 kilograms, and an adult elephant cow, 3,500 kilograms, 3.5 tons. A big rhino bull can run amazingly. They are incredibly agile. They're incredibly good at sort of cantering along. You can just feel the peace enveloping this area. And loving those dwarf cat's whiskers and various other and also eating, I'm just trying to identify the grass species. They look like Eragrosta species, and this elephant is being very selective, not just eating anything. It's picking specific grass species. Now, Ellen in New York, you're wondering what I mean when I say a Catholic diet. Is there some kind of religious bent to how animals out here eat? Catholic diet basically just means that they will eat lots of different kinds of things. I don't know where the word comes from or why it's, why it is what it is. But a Catholic diet is a term that I do use quite often to refer to a diet that is wide and varied. So an elephant will eat lots of different things, and another animal with an obviously Catholic diet is something like a leopard, which will eat small antelope, reptiles, fish, insects if it has to, frogs, and all sorts of other things in between. So that would be considered a Catholic diet. I'm not sure what the opposite of it would be. I suppose a very selective diet would be the opposite. So something like a wild dog does not have a Catholic diet. They will only eat small antelope and fresh antelope. A hyena would definitely be considered to have a Catholic diet. But there's no, I mean, I guess the term must in some way be related to the same term for the religious sect, but yeah, I don't know actually what the relationship is. Let's move a little bit closer into this peaceful herd. I'm not sure what the etymology of the word is. I always feel very intellectual when I say the word etymology, don't you, Bryan? Etymology. Well, yes, well, you know, the etymological origin of the word is, of course, lost in the end of history. But the youngster's not very happy and just seeking a little bit of comfort with the rest of the herd. And Siberia, Zumi, you were obviously had a big night out, I think. You want to know elephants can fly. Siberia, Zumi, they cannot run. They're not known for their flying ability out here. Perhaps in some parts of the world they can fly. Bryan, are you aware of any flying elephants? No. Siberia, I think it's unlikely that they fly. I've certainly never seen it, but you know, as I say before, you never want to say something is impossible. Look, this one is tuskless. This young elephant is tuskless. Now that can have consequences, depending on whether that is a female or a male, and at this stage very difficult to tell because he or she hasn't hit puberty yet. Now, if he or she does grow up tuskless as a bull, that's going to be a disadvantage, because they use their tusks to intimidate rivals, they use their tusks to look impressive, and what it can do is result in an animal feel extra threatened and therefore potentially more dangerous than an animal with tusks. So that's quite interesting. But if it's a cow, it will have very little difference, make very little difference to her life. Safe to say that it will be difficult for her to eat as efficiently as many of the others. She's having a bit of a dig here, Bryan. I'm going to hope that she's a cow. So whilst many elephants do use their tusks for eating, for peeling off bark and that sort of thing, she'll still be okay. She wouldn't harm her too much. She's looking for a root, some delicious kind of root there that she wants to eat. I wonder if she seems to have found it. Or she's just digging some sand to throw on herself. But she is being very fastidious about it. No, she's found something to eat. We'll go and look in that hole once she's moved off. Scratching her little eye. I'm sure this is the herd of elephants that was moving around all night, around where the leopard was, where those lion tracks were. Let's move a little bit closer in there, see if we can't find what they were eating. And halving, these elephants are obviously grey and therefore contain melanin in the skin. And you want to know if elephants can be albino. I've heard of 1 or 2 incidences of elephants being albinos, yes. Out here they would die quite quickly, probably not because the herd would reject them, but simply because they would be unable to cope with the African sun. Now, Bryan, I'm going to exit the car slowly And what I would like very much for you to do is tell me if any elephants approach the vehicle. They won't see me, everybody, because I will be hidden from them, but I just want to look in this hole. I think this is a fungus of some kind. No, or a piece of root. Can you see it, Bryan? Mm. It's very interesting. Let me just dig a bit more. No, I don't know. I think it's probably part of the root system of this combretum tree. And this combretum tree would unquestionably have been broken a number of times by elephants. It is growing from a number of stems, but that's basically what that elephant was eating, and that looks like a piece of root. What do you think? What do you think it is? It's quite interesting, but she was being very fastidious about digging it up. Anyway, that's that. There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Smells like root, hey?
Yeah.
Now, everybody, I wouldn't get out in a herd of elephants unless I was completely hidden from them by bushes and by the vehicle. So they're all through there, and I was confident that they wouldn't see me. They are much more they're much less tolerant of people on foot than they are of us in vehicles. And so if I was to get out of the car the other side and walk towards them, they'd freak out. They'd either run away or squash me. Right, let's move on. Now, Ellen in Arkansas, you have made note of the fact that we seldom see elephants with other animal groups, and are you wrong about that? You're not wrong in the slightest, Ellen. They don't like to hang out with other animals. I think other animals don't really like to hang out with them, to be honest. I don't think they're particularly enthusiastically social with other animals. I have seen... I'm just trying to think if I've ever seen... You know what? We do sometimes see, and we actually saw this yesterday morning with Sam, was a herd of elephants with a herd of buffalo, but they were probably just passing by. So while they don't have an antagonistic relationship with other animals, they don't often spend too much time with them. Bulls, some bulls, when they go what we call rogue, in other words, say young bulls that have been moved or have been traumatized by human beings or haven't been raised in an area with other big bulls, well, they can cause an issue, and they can then sometimes kill rhino and kill buffalo and kill hippo. And so, but I don't think that's why they don't hang around with other animals. The only reason for animals to hang around with each other is normally for safety. And so the herbivores that get eaten the most tend to be the most tolerant of each other. So wildebeest, often with impala, often there's another elephant in front of us, young bull who's following the herd. So wildebeest, impala, zebra, often with each other, sometimes with waterbuck, kudu, nyala, bushbuck. They, of course, live in deep, thick bush, so they're often together. But the elephants and rhino tend to keep to themselves, and buffalo likewise live in big herds on their own, so they don't worry about that too much. Here's a bull just giving us a bit of a head shake because he thinks he should be treated with enormous respect because he is a bull, but he's a young bull, and so we'll call his bluff and just wait here and see what he does. You can hear the laughing doves. Very peaceful sound of this time of the morning. So a young bull just hanging out in the fringes of the herd, still with the herd. Doesn't want to spend too much time with the young kids, though. So just starting to assert himself a little bit. Ah, wonderful, peaceful morning. Maggie in Western Australia, thank you very much. You say Catholic comes from the Greek katholikos, which means universal. So that's very interesting. Thank you very much for that. And I suppose then you can immediately see how it became the name of the Christian religion, or Christian, what am I looking for? Denomination, there we go. Thank you for that, Maggie. And I'm just going to, while we drive down the road here, just to keep you posted, Jamie is trying to track a lion quite urgently. Brent is around there too with Aubrey. The lion seems to be moving all over the place, so they don't really know what's going on, so we're just going to give them some time. While we watch this elephant sort of walking gently down the road, throwing sand on himself, I gave you an impression of the smell at the beginning of the drive. And the smell now has changed. So initially, as the sun popped up, we had that scent of dew coming off the grass. There was a kind of herby type smell as the initial heat of the day started to cause the oils in all those plants to rise up into the atmosphere. Now it's a much drier smell around the place. Right, Jamie is back online. Let's go and get an update from her as to what she's been tracking and where she's been tracking, and I'll continue along the road here. There is no signal on Jamie's car. You're going to stay with me for a little while. It's quite lucky I didn't do anything silly there. You know, so often I say, you know, the final control will say link to Jamie, so I'll say, well, Jamie's off tracking, or Jamie's with some elephants, or Jamie's found a Tyrannosaurus Rex, something like that. And then normally what happens is they will cut immediately the feed, and so then you can normally pull a face or something into the camera or say something outlandish. Thankfully, I didn't do that this time. So this young bull is now just saying to us, that's close enough. Look how big and strong I am. Isn't it great? So just to give you an idea, he's probably about, I'm going to say he's about 3.5 tons. Now in pounds, that is about, well, he's pushing 9,000 pounds. And he's probably about 14 years old, 13 or 14, maybe 15. Very relaxed. I can just hear in the background an elephant grumbling, this wonderful low rumbling sound that they make. And you'll probably find that it's this bull's just staying in contact with the rest of the herd. They will be very aware of where he is. His mother and his aunts and his siblings will know about him and will know of him and will be aware or want to know where he is. So they'll be communicating with those gentle low rumbles, some of which, most of which, are too low for us to hear. And every so often we just get a sort of a noise, which I'm sure sounds very different to them with their extra special ears. Right, we'll just get one last view of him, I think, as he goes around the corner here. He is going into a clearing, and then we'll go and see what else we can find. Jamie in the far north, looking for lions. Brent is around there too, like I say, with Sam. course, also as the heat starts to build, so the amazing plethora of butterflies that we've had are going to start flowering. Flying, not flowering. Butterflies don't flower, Brian. They fly.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Now, as we watch this elephant express his Catholic diet by eating seedlings of trees and grasses at the same time, Jeandre, you want to know what evergreen trees we get here. We don't get many evergreen trees here, Jeandre, mainly because we don't live on a river. So most of the trees here are almost fully deciduous. There are a number that are semi-deciduous, though. So something like a brown ivory will lose its leaves sort of at any time of the year, really, and sometimes not the whole tree. Sometimes half the tree will lose its leaves, and then it will get those back before it loses the others. And the jackalberry trees are the most obvious example of that as well. They will sort of slough off half the tree's leaves and then gain them again before the rest of the tree loses its leaves. And that means that it doesn't ever have a stage where it is completely without food, where it is completely without a stage or a piece of the plant that is able to produce food through photosynthesis. Many of the trees that are completely deciduous, so just about all of the greenery around which you can see there, will not be green come the end of the winter time. And many of those trees go dormant. So they don't use any reserves at all during the winter time. They go completely dormant. I actually can't think right now, offhand, of a tree that is completely evergreen in this area. Can you, Bryan? Not. Okay. While I ponder on the deciduous nature of trees or the otherwise not deciduous nature of trees, let's go across to Jamie. She apparently now has signal.
Well, this has been a very interesting morning. From when you went across to James and we were driving down Triple M saying that we were going to continue our search for various cats of the area, a lion walked apparently straight back across my tracks on Boyatella Main Access. So our wonderful tracking team has been doing sterling work in terms of following them. So far, all I've found is these guys. every road I go down, there's Brent and Sam wandering around trying to find this lion. He's chased a herd of buffalo onto Simbabili. Brent's just told me that he's got them, or he's heard them running back towards us.
No, it's been very interesting. I mean, we were following his tracks. I mean, he heard the buffalo behind us. And then there was just this brrr, and then literally it sounds like a wall crashing down as the buffalo stampede. So we back, and there's literally tracks crisscrossing in every direction. So hopefully we'll be able to figure it out before the end of the safari.
I mean, the Nkumas are on at One-Eyed Pan as well.
So that's what I buffalo back, so fingers crossed.
He's here somewhere.
Somewhere.
They are here somewhere. I think we should go and investigate somewhere else.
Yes, we're going to investigate through this thicket.
There's so many different.
I know, they're just
so many tracks. So many.
And then just elephants on top
Everywhere.
of everything else.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Hopefully, I'll let you know if we find anything. Kwaheri.
Bye-bye. I'm going to send you guys back across to James since my signal's a bit dodgy. We'll catch up with you, hopefully with the lions in tow.
Okay, we left the elephants now, and we're going to head south back sort of towards the southern boundary and then properly to the east. And we'll go eventually, I think, we'll fetch up at Buffelshoek Dam. And as I was saying, the butterflies are now starting to... What are they doing, Bryan?
They are flowering.
They are flowering, exactly. The butterflies are starting to flower. So we'll have a couple of looks at them too, because I find them just fascinating, just beautiful this year. I've never seen them in such profusion in this area before, and I know it's the late rains that we've had that have brought up so many different kinds of flowers that have created this great plethora, great swarms of beautiful butterflies all over the place. If you would like to see any specific butterflies, do let us know. I wonder if any of you are keeping butterfly lists. I know many of you keep bird lists. And I must just say, for those of you who are keeping bird lists, I found two days in a row a yellow-throated petronia, and I said to you, those of you who keep bird lists, I'm sure that's a new one for you. Not one of you has said anything to me about my adding to your bird list with the yellow-throated petronia, and likewise, I'm sure that the ostriches that Jamie found the other day, while you may not have realized it, were also a brilliant addition to any bird list that you might be keeping for around this area. I need to put some sunscreen on a particularly irritated part of my skin, if you don't mind, everybody. Don't worry, I shall keep going. And it would seem that people want to talk about plants today, and when you're not seeing large numbers of mammals and birds, that's brilliant, because there are lots of plants to talk about. Lucy, you're in Indiana and you want to know about softwood. What softwood trees do we get here? Not many. Many of the trees out here have got very hard wood that makes them termite resistant, and I'm trying to think of one with particularly soft wood. I mean, the jackalberries are quite soft, the ebony trees. So there's one there on the top of the termite mound. I'll just stop where we can get a look at it. That one there on the top of the tree is a softish wood tree. That's the ebony or jackalberry, Diospirus mispilliformes. I suppose this guarri bush here would have relatively soft wood. But the combretum, the most common tree here, the Combretum apiculatum or red bush willow tree, has immensely hard wood. It has wood of a density, something, I think it's about 1,300 kilograms per cubic meter, which, now I'm going to have to convert this. I'm just doing the imperial calculation in my brain quickly. 1,300 kilograms per cubic meter is its density, so that means it will sink. Water is 1,000 kilograms per cubic decimeter. I'm not even going to attempt to do it in imperial, I'm afraid. Anyway, it's very, very dense and very, very heavy indeed. Okay, Jamie's got a bird to show you. Oh, no, we can't go to Jamie. Oh dear. Never mind. Never mind. You just stay with me, everybody. Don't worry, we'll be okay. We'll be all right. Ah, here's a human being walking along the road. That's an interesting thing to find. I assume that he is a tracker of some sort. Otherwise, Ahe. Minjani kwalan. Milanza inkonzo. Yeah, I'm sure vakume lega north ya Sendipage. Kwalanza inkonzo le. Yeah. Mara avakumanga. Avakumanga. Vakume kui. Leka aratos. Simbambi. Oh, okay, okay. I'm sure yijigele. Yeah, no. Inko mungo. Inko. Here's a guide from Jacobin, and there are his guests having a having their tea. Mike, you're in Florida, and you say that ostrich made your bird list an astonishing 233 species. That is really impressive. Thank you for that, Mike. Good morning.
How are you going?
Good, how are you?
Had a good time?
Yes, good time. Not much to see, but having a good time. They must think I'm absolutely mad. Deanna, you've just started a bird list as well, and you say that you're very strict about having to see them with your own eyes. Well, I think that's important. You can't see them with someone else's eyes, Deanna. You might allow yourself to hear them as well. That's many birders will allow themselves to hear a bird and give it a gardenia flower. Really? Well done. So, Jeandre, you've got 15. This flower, everybody, is my favorite. And I haven't seen one this season because there's been no rain. Oh, wow. Bryan, do you think I'm going to be able to reach that with my very insubstantial stature?
Maybe.
Don't look at my bubble butt, everybody. Apparently I've got a bubble butt. I don't even know what that is. Oh, my year is complete. Bryan, would you like to smell it?
I would love to smell it.
Come and smell it. Lock off the camera because it is too spectacular for words. And I'm not going to pick it, everyone, even though this one is nearly dead itself.
Oh, it's incredible.
Is it not amazing?
Fantastic.
Oh, it really is quite spectacular. It's sweet. I suppose jasmine-y, would you say, Bryan? Sweet, jasmine-y. It's unlike anything else out here. Bit of rose, bit of lily, and it will be dead in 2 days' time. Marvellous. Well spotted, Bryan. I've been going on about them for ages. I haven't seen one. So, back to Jeandre and her bird list. Jeandre, you have 15. And I think you should allow yourself to add to your list if you hear a bird, because we can very effectively identify birds from hearing. Judy H., you want to know if I've ever heard the story of Monty the positive squirrel. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, a little... On Sam's first drive, he told a terribly sad story of his pet squirrel, Monty, who I think was killed by the dog, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it was killed by a dog. And Sam felt very bad about telling this sad and morose story on his first game drive, and so in an attempt to put a positive spin on the story, he described his squirrel as a positive squirrel. Now, in the final control, this resulted in apoplexia. Kirsten, who was directing at the time, fell off her chair. I was driving, we were on Treehouse Dam. I shall remember the incident for the rest of my days. All she could say through the microphone was, "Hello, hello," which basically meant you're live, you're live. And then she fell on the floor and everybody in the final control collapsed. And of course, this has now become something of a highlight of Safari Live, Sam's positive squirrel story. And it is the story is not particularly remarkable. It's not unusual for a squirrel to be eaten by a dog, I don't think. But I don't know how many of you have met a positive squirrel before. I don't know that I could identify the difference between a positive squirrel and a negative squirrel. But in the case of Sam, he is able to do that. Ah, hey. Come Jeandre. Mi come in? Ifambe qui. Okay, Marile South. Okay, cool. So, everybody, that is Chitra telling us that Karula was found this morning south of the boundary. Obviously, she didn't take the cubs to the kill. She ate and has moved back towards them. So that's good news for them, not for us. Bryan, are you able to tell the difference between a positive and a negative squirrel? No, it's difficult, isn't it? Yeah. But I'm hoping that over the coming months, Sam will teach us. Rag ever since. The thing with old Sam is that he's one of the most genuine people I've ever met in my life. And you combine that with a sort of sense of Cape Town. Now, what I mean by a sense of Cape Town is that everything is kind of slowed up slightly. This is how Cape Townians are. And it's difficult to say why they're like that. And so it's just it's a wonderful, wonderful addition we have to our team to have this very relaxed, very positive influence from the far southwestern corner of the country. Let's go across to Jamie and see if she has some signal.
I'm starting to feel a little bit like I'm stuck in some kind of time loop where I just keep missing the animals that run across the road while I'm not there, and then I get there just behind them. So those tracks that I'm looking at here are buffalo tracks racing back across the road this side. These tracks going backwards and forwards. No lion tracks, no lion, and no buffalo that I can see. Unfortunately, because of my shaky signal in this area, I'm probably going to have to leave for now. We'll leave Brent and Sam to follow up, just because we don't seem to be able to get picture in very many places where the lions are moving about. These buffalo tracks, what I'm looking at is there's places where they've actually kicked the sand, and it's a very clear running shape to the track. Their toes dig in a little bit deeper there, and they flick the sand as they drag their toes slightly. So they've run that side, they ran onto Simbambili, which is on our northwestern boundary, and then they've run back. But I haven't seen a buffalo. I haven't heard them either. Brent said he heard them racing towards us. So there's mass confusion at the moment, but there might also be mass panic with the buffalo. So it might be that they've split off, some have run away. It could even have been that the Nkuhumas, who are at One Eye Pan on Simbambili at the moment, not far away from this road at all, but unfortunately outside of a traverse area. But there's a distinct possibility that they could have caught one. So I've been sort of driving, stopping, looking, listening. Still no sign of them. Now, unfortunately, as I said, I'm going to have to leave for now. We shall leave Brent and Sam to follow up and figure out what's going on here. But still keep your eyes peeled, because oh, this is where they've crossed again. Further south than I realized. I'll show you what I mean. Hold on 1 second. Just have a look at where this ground is all churned up here as they raced onto the path. You can see multiple hoof prints disappearing off into Simbambili. Well, at least I know the buffalo are not a figment of my imagination or anybody else's. Imagined buffalo don't leave footprints. They are just a lot further south than I realized. But that makes sense. If the Nkuhumas have chased them, and that was the reason for Brent hearing the sounds of that stampede. The Nkuhumas are about, or were, when we last called in, about 100 meters up this road. Well, at least we're further south, so we can sort of stay on the tracks. Now, Kyle, you were wondering which lion pride is on Jeandre and which... Oh, it's a lot of lion rocks to see out of the corner of my eye. That is a rock, isn't it? Behind all of those rocks. Sorry, Kyle, I'll get to your question in one moment. No, those are all rocks. See, it does sort of look like a sleeping lion in the shade. A whole load of lion rocks. Admittedly, with Jeandre zooming in like that, maybe they don't look like lion rocks, but they do when you're staring into the sun and you're moving fairly fast. So Kyle, you were wondering about which lion pride is on Jeandre and which one is on Cheetah Plains. The question is, are the lions on Jeandre, or are they just running rings around us? At the moment, there's at least one Birmingham boy that has crossed over onto Jeandre. The Nkuhuma pride tend to make Jeandre, or Jeandre is part of their core home range. Now, Cheetah Plains is interesting because it's one of those areas that actually falls into the overlap of the Nkuhuma pride and the Styx pride. So the Styx often hang out there. The females are often seen around that area, and Cheetah further to the south. It's important to remember that lion territories, particularly with the prides, there is a considerable degree of overlap between the two. So in that case, when the Nkuhumas are further north, the Styx females might move into the northern part of their own territory around Cheetah Plains. Now, a couple of weeks ago, before the birth of the Styx cubs, there was a confrontation, or a reported confrontation, between the Nkuhumas and the Styx females around Nkoro, which is the neighbor of Cheetah Plains, so it falls right on that boundary. There was a bit of a scrap. The Nkuhumas chased the Styx females off, and all of them walked away with the odd nick and cut. Fights between females very seldom result in really serious injuries. Unlike fights between males often result in death. But in the case of females, they scrap with each other, and they can injure each other, but it's very seldom that it will turn into a super aggressive situation. I'm going to head away from this area now, see if I can't find some better signal. While I do, let's head across to James and some birds.
There, framed in beautiful verdant green, is a hoopoe, the African hoopoe. There was a pair of them there. There's only one now. And that long beak it is using to probe in amongst the bark of the tree for grubs and beetle larvae and other insects that might be there. Now also, we're kind of in a bit of a bird party here. There is a woodpecker just off to the left of us. It's through some bush though, but it's close by. Can you see it there, Bryan? It's just in here. It's sort of through the bush, and I'm hesitant to move, but it's close by. It's right through that kind of thick stuff there. I think I'm going to have to move forward. Let me just go forward a little bit. The sound of the engine does generally make birdies fly away if they're too close by. Let's just stop here. And there you can see a bracket fungus on the tree, and that bracket fungus is an indicator that the heartwood of the tree is being eaten away. So some kind of wood-boring insect has got in there, and the fungal spores then got in there and started to eat away at the heartwood. And that's why it will be a really good place for a woodpecker to peck, because there will be some very soft wood there. Sorry, I'm just looking at some other birds. There were some crested franklins. Anyway, let's continue from here. Hello, Ellen, again from Arkansas. Ellen, you want to know about natural insect repellents, and are there any plants here that we can rub on ourselves to keep away flies and mosquitoes? Well, Steph swears blind by using burning elephant dung. So you get elephant dung into a fine smolder, and it's supposed to keep flies and mosquitoes and other things like that away. It does do that. It also results in asphyxiation and no other people wanting to be near you either. So not so much an insect repellent as an all-encompassing organism repellent is the elephant dung burning. Then there are a few herbaceous plants, probably like the wild saffron, and what's the other one I'm searching for? But let's just say the wild saffron for now, that you can take and rub on your skin, and it will have a kind of natural citronella effect where it will sort of chase away the flies. You know what, I've just got so used to it now that it doesn't actually bug me that much. And the other day I was reading my book outside under a tree, and a fly came and sat upon my balding head. And for the first 3 times I chased it off, and then I gave up, and then I just enjoyed the kind of tickling sensation that it produced on the top of my scalp. And I think that's probably how we should all deal with flies, don't you think, Bryan?
Until they bite you.
Until they bite you. Then you must kill them, Bryan. Then they must die. A fly that bites me deserves to end its life. There are some baboon tracks going up here, which is interesting. A whole troop of baboons came running up here sometime during the course of the morning. They do spend a lot of time on Torchwood, which isn't too far from here. I think they're probably running towards Torchwood Camp to raid the place and then have a drink at the Torchwood Dam. I've seen both Quarantine and Gunuma on this road. Monkey Man, while we drive along here, hoping to find Gunuma and Quarantine again. You want to know what the top 5 common trees in the area are. So, Combretum apiculatum, definitely, very common, the red bush willow. I'd say that is the most common. The next most common would probably be the black monkey orange. Here, I saw Gunuma in this tree. Bryan and I both saw him. Remember, Bryan? It was a great, wondrous day, that. Unfortunately, he ain't going to be lying in this tree again. Gunuma, everybody, is a 3-and-a-bit-year-old male leopard, offspring of the queen of Djuma, Karula and Mvula, the erstwhile territorial male of this area. I'm just trying to find you a common... Oh, there we go. There's the black monkey orange, this scraggly bush here. And although it's not often seen, well, it's not an obvious thing because it doesn't stick out the ground like so many of the other trees. It is very common, and it's an encroacher species. I suppose a knob thorn tree must be quite common too, maybe in the top 5 common trees that we get here. The variable bush willow, Combretum calinum, would be another one. And, Bryan, a final common tree. You know, I don't think anybody's actually ever taken the time to count these things, so I am guessing slightly. I'm just going on the things that I see the most of. I suppose a silver cluster leaf would probably be the other one. There are lots of them around. Terminalia sericea. So, Monkey Man, those are going to be the ones I give you. Combretum apiculatum, red bush willow. Combretum calinum, variable bush willow. Terminalia sericea, the silver cluster leaf. Acacia nigrescens, the knob thorn, and Strychnos madagascarensis, the black monkey orange. There you go. Thank you, Monkey Man. Hope you've written those down. Put them on a list. Put them on your fridge. Don't fall out of the car, Bryan. It's a bit of road's a bit uneven. What we do know is that gardenias are not the most common. And we're chatting about insect repellents and plants that can get rid of insects. And Deanna, you want to know if it is, if we have citronella. I don't think we have naturally occurring citronella here, no. I mean, you can certainly buy it in any number of sort of herbal or health or organic shops as a kind of natural alternative to DDT or DEET. A much better alternative, no doubt. But I don't think that it grows naturally here. Just keeping an eye out on the road here. Lots of elephants have come to and fro across the road, a couple of buffalo. The baboons, like I say, they seem to have headed off towards Torchwood, but we will keep an eye out for them. That'd be great fun to watch. Baboons are actually excellent, but they can become like raiding gangs when they get used to being around people and into camps. Jamie has got something much larger to show you. Let's go and have a look there.
something much larger indeed, or at least some smaller, much larger things. We've got 2 young elephants. We've actually got a whole breeding herd hiding in some very thick vegetation around the power lines. And I'm going to back up a little bit. There's a very unsettled elephant here. And everything about her body language is telling me to go a little bit further away. You actually can't even see her. She's hidden in here, but she's done a full circle to come back to us, to face us from the side. Let's just stop here for a moment. There's a helicopter, and that's what's causing them huge... No, we're going. All right, big girl. We're going. It's all right. Okay. Unfortunately, she's very, very unsettled. Now, I don't think she's going to charge us. I don't think she's going to do or act on it. But it does make me want to just leave the area. She's upset because of the helicopter that's buzzing around. Elephants really, really don't like helicopters. And it's the fact that she's gone all the way round as she has from when we first approached the sighting, plus her body language that just tells me that it's, if we are going to see the sighting, it has to be from the other side where she feels more comfortable. She's just not happy. And I've had it happen once or twice. Apparently there are helicopters up and about. They're actually doing an elephant count, so they are actively searching for the elephants. And it's a very important part of the conservation tactics of this area. But what it means is that the helicopters are actively flying over elephant herds. Now this particular female, it's the female with the snared trunk, who's always very, very relaxed around cars. And it's one of those things where... What is this noisy Franklin? You hear it? It's one of those things where a little bit of knowledge of the animals and a little bit of background experience helps as well. Because I know that elephant and I know how relaxed she is normally. So her body language today is telling me that something really has upset her. So what we'll do is we will wait for them to slowly move into the open, but what we'll do is we'll do a big circuit around them and just let them relax a little bit. Obviously that helicopter, maybe even the lions moving about last night have also made her feel upset. I've had it once or twice where an elephant has circled me and come from a different direction. Oh, the lions might have upset the elephants just because elephants have quite an intrinsic dislike of all predators, including predators that are not really a threat to them. But Matt was wondering if an elephant on its own would be at risk of predators. And of course, the only situation where an elephant really is on its own, unless something drastic has happened, is with young males and with older males, but with young males. And the answer is very, very seldom. An elephant is big enough to defend itself against almost all predators. There are certain lion prides that are capable of taking down an elephant. They have learned to take down elephants. Those are more in the sort of Botswana marshy areas. No, boys. We'll stop and look at some lovely impala, since the morning not quite going according to plan. So Matt, a lion could take down a lone elephant. It's very, very unusual, and it's really only when they are absolutely desperate for access to food that they will actually attempt it. On the subject of lions, our male lion crossed into Simbambili after the buffalo. His tracks, I missed his tracks. They were trodden on by the buffalo, but Brent found them traveling behind me. So he has moved off. Lovely impala rams in this morning sunlight. Right, let's go and see if we can't follow up with those elephants. We just have to do a large loop where they feel a bit more comfortable and where we've got a bit more space and they've got a bit more space. It's always that way. When there's a helicopter, we saw the same behavior with the Nkuhuma lionesses. You know, we've got so used to them being completely comfortable with cars. And it was actually on this road with Bryan where we went to approach them at the start of a sunset safari, and at 100 meters away, they all got up and ran away, which for our lions in the Sabi Sands is exceptionally unusual behavior, as most of our regular viewers know. And it turns out afterwards that it was a very low-flying helicopter. For elephants in particular, some of them might have memories of being darted, maybe for research purposes, maybe for medical purposes, to possibly put a tracking collar on one of the members of the herds, and that usually is done from a helicopter. It also buzzes around them. It interferes with their senses. It frightens them in a way that they can't control because they can't chase this thing that's in the air. That's one of the reasons why elephants do get a little bit upset when helicopters are flying by. It doesn't take them long to relax afterwards. And there's a great deal of research that has gone into different techniques for administering care or moving elephants, depending on what's necessary. Now, in our particular area, we're very fortunate. It's so large that we don't really have to, recent thinking is that we really don't have to manage the elephant population. It will manage itself. But in certain closed areas, so closed systems with fences, elephant populations do have to be managed and monitored in the way in which their numbers grow and they reproduce. And where I used to work, it was a closed system, so the elephants, it was actually one of the pioneered test sites for a type of elephant contraception that works on the body's autoimmune response rather than on hormones. There we go. We've got a lovely herd of kudu here with the little ones as well. Our babies. Too sweet. It's amazing how, casting my mind back to the beginning of the year and trying to track down and find and monitor pregnant kudu on our live drives, and already their offspring have grown in the last 3 months almost to the height of the adults. Definitely not the bulk, but certainly almost to the height. The wonderful thing about antelope this age is that they are exceedingly playful. Although it's getting a little bit too warm for them at the moment. This is a large herd of kudu. They must be about, I would guess, at close to 10 wandering around here. 3 or 4 youngsters. Definitely 3. Nice and relaxed as well. Sure. Can't believe what a hectic runaround the lions have given us this morning. This little one that's moving in from the left has got a fascinating stripe pattern where the stripe in the middle of the back, it's just turned to the wrong angle, but it splits into a couple of different lines. And of course, if we really wanted to, we could actually identify each individual kudu by their stripe patterns. It's exactly like a leopard spots or a cheetah spots or a lion's whisker pattern. They are unique. Each one is like a fingerprint for each individual kudu. But you can also, the fascinating thing about that is you can also see genetic similarities. I've watched families or herds of Inyala for years at a time. There was one female that I always used to watch with a backwards J on her shoulder and several split stripes, and you could always tell her offspring they had very, very similar stripe patterns. So that genetics still shines through. I always feel as though a kudu's stripes look a little bit like somebody's poured wet white paint along their back and it's dripped down. Teresa, one of our viewers, of course, told that stunning story about a local explanation for the white sort of spots and stripes on kudu and yala and bushbuck. The idea that with their skinny legs, they wouldn't be able to hold their weight. And so the creator reached down and lifted them up. And wherever the creator touched the kudu or the inyala or the bushbuck, he left white prints of his hands. And there are such beautiful markings on, especially in yala, where you can almost imagine the fingerprints. These little ones are so cute. We were fortunate enough to film a kudu, two actually, but one in particular, probably a couple of hours after it was born. It was still wet, it still had the umbilical cord dangling from it. And Mom had given birth first thing in the morning. As female antelope tend to do, it's much safer because you've got the babies have the entire day ahead of them with limited predator activity in which to start building up their coordination and learning to walk. But it is an incredible thing to watch the babies when they're first born struggling up onto those spindly legs and being able to run within probably about an hour of their birth. Just bear with me 1 second. Somebody's trying to get hold of me. Standing by. Last station, confirm you're calling for Jamie. Morning, Elvis. I'm fine, thanks. And you? Elvis, I'm not entirely sure. It was an update from Brent. I will double check with him. He was chasing Inyari, so where those tracks go across further to the north of One-Eyed Pan Link. Absolutely stunning sighting. Now, Elvis just wants a little bit more detail about where the lions crossed. So let's head back over to James and a butterfly.
That, everybody, is a gorgeous painted lady. Isn't she lovely? It's probably a he, but looks like it's called a painted lady. And flittering about there... Ooh, hang on. What is that? There's one painted lady, and I think it's another... I don't know. Oh, it's a yellow pansy. The other one's a yellow pansy. Yes, yellow pansy and painted lady and monarch. African monarch butterfly with its warning coloration. It's orange and black and white, and that is often an indicator of a toxic animal. And it is, of course, toxic because its larvae or caterpillars feed on milkweeds. See, I told you lots of butterflies. Oh, painted lady, yellow pansy, and monarch in one picture. The reason I'm having a little giggle, everyone, is that before you came live, Bryan and I were putting on various accents to describe the painted lady, and I nearly gave you one by mistake there, but I managed to hold off. There's the yellow pansy. And they're eating, I think, probably a species of Wolfteria. But Judy H., if I'm incorrect on my plant identification, please let me know. Oh, and it's just so peaceful. In the background, the ring-necked dove is calling. Bryan, this is not the worst way to spend a Wednesday afternoon, at least morning, wouldn't you say? I mean, many of you, of course, will be thinking about heading off to work at some stage. Well, sorry for you. As the eastern horizon turns a slightly less or slightly cooler shade of blue. Now, James Richard, I'm really being tested quite heavily on the plants here today. You want to know what the top 5 grass species are here, the top 5 number of grass? I don't know. I really don't know. I could probably give you the genus. So, I mean, what Bryan's looking at there is a genus called, well, actually, shall we get out and look? Stand by, James Richard. If you want to know about grasses, I shall tell you about them. I warn you, though, I probably won't be as entertaining as a wild dog hunt. So this is from a genus called Eragrostis, or the love grasses, and the love grasses are pretty common. There are lots of different kinds of them, though. So let's go on genus, not full species. So Eragrostis, definitely one of the most common genuses of grass that we get here. This is not a very common one. I think it's called Pogonathra squarosa, or the herringbone grass. Can you say Pogonathra squarosa?
Pogonathra squarosa.
Very, very nice. It isn't Pogonathra. It's a similar one, though. So Eragrostis is the most common. Then there was one other. Oh, here we go. This thing is called Diheteropogon contortus, or speargrass. And I'm sure you've seen this before, James. But what it does is that if you wet it, what it does is it curls. It turns from side to side. Can you see that? It's turning like a drill. And so when the rains come, it rains onto the sort of orm that this is, or orn, and it twists and then disappears, sort of drills itself into the ground, which I think is particularly clever. And that's what it looks like there, Diheteropogon contortus. And all of these are flowers, of course. That's the anther on which the pollen existed just before the seed is formed. It's not a common grass. So let's go with Eragrostis. I guess also panicum underneath the trees, panicum or guinea grass, very good grazing grass. And then we know that there are a number of different chloris species that we've been seeing. We get Roxburghiana, that's the feathered chloris that lives on the termite mounds. This, I think, is another kind of chloris, perhaps Chloris virgata, I'm not sure. And so they're also pretty common. So Eragrostis, chloris, Aristida, which is not a good grazing grass, would be found in many of the disturbed areas. And here's the panicum. Here's the guinea grass. Lovely purple seeds there. Very good grazing grass. If you've got this on your land, you know things are in pretty good shape indeed. So that's a few of them, James. I'm trying to rack my brains as to whether or not I can say, you know, which ones are the most common or not, but I don't think I can. I've got one more to show you. And these are, I mean, these are all common genuses of grass. Yeah, this is an Aristida grass, or 3-orn, and an indicator of disturbed soils or overgrazing. And it's unsurprising that it's growing on a roadside here. So it's not, in this particular case, not an indicator of overgrazing, but much more an indicator of just the disturbed soil because of the road right next to it. Okay, that's the 4 grasses, or 5 grasses, but they all taste very different. And this one, Aristida, bad grazing grass, tastes quite chemically. Chloris is pretty good. This one I know is sweet. Panicum. The love grass, let's taste the love grass. That's straw. And this one, Diheteropogon, also good grazing grass. Quite sweet. This one looks distasteful. I'm not going to eat it. All right, we're quite close to Bivelshoek Dam right now. We can go and have a look there. I've plugged myself back in. So those are all the grasses, everyone. Almost as entertaining as a wild dog hunt, wouldn't you say, Bryan?
Very close.
Yes. I mean, I quite like them. I know some people will now be in a stupor of sleep. And Cheryl, lots of plant questions coming through today. Do we have any bamboo species? You're in California. No, Cheryl, we don't have any bamboo species in this area. You get a few up in the Central African rainforest. You get a similar kind of species to bamboo. It does grow here, but no bamboo in this area. Bamboo. It's a great word, that bamboo. Don't you think, Bryan? Right, we have come across Buffelshoek Dam where not many thirsty things are living, but there is the hippopotamus and his resident serrated-hinged terrapin. That is wonderful. Isn't that great? That is an enormous terrapin. That is an absolutely vast terrapin. And as Sam said yesterday, the hippo is the ferry for the terrapin. Not so much ferry as raft, especially given, of course, that the collective noun for hippo is raft. Now, if you look carefully at that terrapin, everyone, you can see that the back of its shell is slightly serrated, and that is where the term serrated hinged terrapin comes from. The hinge is underneath the front feet on the plastron, which is the bottom part of the shell. But he is huge. I mean, he's probably, what, Bryan, about a foot across?
Yeah.
I don't think that hippo's moved in the last 4 days. Now, there's one distressing thing to see here, and I think that is that the water is starting to recede again here. So, while it will hold water for the next, at least, I'd say 2 months, it's definitely not as full as it was at the same time last year. Oops. Hippo twisting around a bit, the terrapin hanging on for grim death. Just moving around a bit. Now the terrapin, quite apart from using the hippo as an island, is also like an aquatic oxpecker. They will eat ticks and things off the skin of hippo and of buffalo that come to drink here. Elephants, I don't think, will tolerate them, but other animals as well, probably. He's decided that's enough of that. He's going to go and look for something to eat. That is so cool. Now remember, this is an important thing for a terrapin to do because, of course, it is a reptile, which means it doesn't produce its own body heat. So on a chilly morning, the water temperature is probably a little bit cooler than it is normally at this time of the day and heading into the sort of hotter parts of the day. And that means that it will be difficult for a reptile like that terrapin to move. And so a bit of time in the sun, heating up in exactly the same way that a lizard does or a crocodile does, is very important in order for the metabolic processes to occur at the right temperature, and also for the terrapin to keep moving about the place. Monkey Man, you want to know about saddle-billed storks and where they are and where the pair is. We used to see a pair of saddle-billed storks very often here before the dam dried out. Monkey Man, we saw that pair of storks all over the place here at all the different water holes. And then when all the water holes dried out, I think they departed. They went somewhere else, and I just don't think they've come back. We have seen two, I think, at the Jeandre Dam about a week and a half ago or so. I think they were there, but they are nomadic. They'll go wherever the food is best. So I've no doubt we'll get another pair coming in every so often. Okay, let's head across to Jamie, see what she's up to. I'm going to go down through a slightly dodgy signal area, so I'll see you the other side of that.
I've decided to just let the elephants be for now. There's a couple of messages going around about the helicopter counts and the fact that it has unsettled the elephants slightly. So I figure that just for today, we can do without a long elephant sighting, give them a chance to settle down and ease back into relaxing around vehicles. In the meantime, we're going to bumble across to Treehouse Dam, since all of our lions have decided to disappear off the property, and see whether or not Karula might be around, maybe going for an early morning drink at the dam after her kill that she managed to finish off yesterday evening. I've just been wondering whether or not the cubs are still on Little Gowrie, or whether or not she's decided to move them back into this general vicinity. My suspicion is that they are still further to the south of our boundary. These lions walked all over Jeandre last night. There are tracks absolutely everywhere, as Sam and Brent mentioned when we bumped into them on the tracking team. They've been very mobile. But yes, whether or not Karula's actually moved her cubs to the north, I don't think so, just because after that one magical day that we saw them all, or that we saw the two of them coming out of the bushes, the tracks seem to cross back into that area. I'm still desperately looking for a nice, perfect little cub track, because it's going to be so interesting if we can monitor the growth of the size of their feet as they start to get older and older. It would be really nice to start now at about 2 months old, and their feet must be probably about the size of a civet track. They will be absolutely minuscule, probably even smaller actually. That's something for us to keep an eye out for as we peruse this general area. She hasn't moved very far at all from the Treehouse Dam side of things. But I'm going to go around this way. Check from this side up. Just being out here on any given morning, any given afternoon, and spending a little bit of time with the wildlife is always an absolute pleasure to do. Chelsea was wondering what, in particular, my favorite animal to see on safari is. And it's such a difficult one because it changes day to day, and it's really hard to choose. I have to say, Chelsea, that nothing makes me happier than spending a bit of time with elephants and just sitting with them while they are nice and relaxed. Obviously not a situation like the one we found ourselves in, where they clearly weren't terribly chuffed with us being around, but when spending an hour or 2 hours, or I've spent 6 hours at a go, just watching an elephant herd, and they, unlike sleeping lions or even sleeping leopards, which of course I always enjoy seeing, elephants are always doing something. Whether it's just watching the intricacies of their trunk movement or the way in which they are playing together, whatever it happens to be, I always find them highly enjoyable to observe in that sense. But as I said, it changes on any given day. I don't really have a set favorite animal. I also love spending time with the hyenas. Spotted hyenas to me are similar to elephants in that there's always that sense of mischief. There's always a look in their eye like they might get up to something. And it's just a matter of time before they do. I always find that highly entertaining. Jeandre, do you have a favorite animal to see? Dogs. Wild dogs are also... Wild dogs shifts the gear completely for us. And it becomes very much a first of all, appreciating the speed and the incredible coordination. And it's been a while since we've seen wild dogs in this particular area. Lucy, you were wondering if we've heard of any wild dogs being in the area. There was a brief report about wild dogs on Nkoro 2.5 days ago. And they seem to have gone back towards Kruger rather than coming across to the west in our direction. But I know that we're all feeling it a little bit. We're feeling the loss of our wild dogs. It's been a long time since we've seen them. Treehouse Dam starting to look a little bit depleted now. I've been watching for a while as we've been driving down this road and as we watch this blacksmith lapwing. I've been watching the buffalo tracks come through here, and I can tell you that an enormous herd has come to have a drink around Treehouse Dam. Blacksmith lapwings are definitely one of the most striking birds, with their black and white and grey plumage. And they're called blacksmith lapwings, as this little one picks up seeds and various other debris from the side of the mud. They're called blacksmith lapwings because their call sounds like a hammer or an anvil, like the sounds you might hear from an old-fashioned blacksmith hammering on iron. There we go. Oh. I mean, you've got a lot of them making that sound together. It sounds as though they are forging some kind of metal in the distance. So that's where the name blacksmith lapwing comes from. Very, very vocal birds. Popping its head up and down. Very often that rapid movement of a bird's head is a way of just really getting a good three-dimensional picture of what's in front of it. So that head bob, just that rapid movement through space, backwards and forwards, helps them to focus their eyes on certain shapes that are far away or close to them. A great way of locating food. And of course, birds, in terms of their eyesight and their vision, in a lot of ways it's far better than human beings, especially their frame rate per second, what they view versus ours. I think we see something like 30, they see 300. Those are guess numbers. I can't remember exactly what the frame rate is. But birds essentially, if I can phrase it like this, see faster than we do. Look at him dashing along. Any ground bird like that, the back toe is severely reduced, be barely visible, so you can tell these tracks from any other bird species. Oh, computer eyes in Washington. Oh, Brent just trying to get hold of us there. You were wondering about the mosquito population with the drought as we continue on. I think the Treehouse Dam. Actually, no, before I do, I'm going to go forward a little bit. Sorry, I will get back to that question. I'm going to go forward a little bit and I can show you what I mean about along the dam where the water's been washed up along the side by the passage of probably hundreds of buffalo bodies going in there. Now, it's either that kind of effect and the level of the water is either caused by a herd of buffalo or a herd of elephants or both. And I've got elephants and buffalo tracks around here. Our Treehouse Dam is already, unfortunately, starting to dry up and disappear. Just waving flies away from my face. Back to the question about the mosquito population and the effect of the drought on it. And you'd be right in assuming that the drought has played a role in reducing the mosquito population. Their larvae are born or hatched in standing bodies of water. There haven't been very many of those around for a large portion of our wet season. So yes, our population, our mosquito population has dropped to a certain extent. But with the big rains that we had just a couple of weeks ago, there are still multiple standing bodies of water that have allowed for the mosquito population to recover to a certain degree. And I must say, over the last few nights, I've been, I wouldn't say struggling, but I've certainly been plagued more than I have throughout the whole rest of the season by mosquitoes. You can be rest safely assured the mosquitoes are still around and thriving. But over the next few months, as we go into our dry season, we won't see any mosquitoes, and we'll probably not see any mosquitoes. The knock-on effect will probably continue well into next year. Apparently the next big rains are only expected, proper big rains, not the odd drizzle, are only expected in around the beginning of 2017. So not even at the beginning of our wet season. That impact of that drought will have a knock-on effect on mosquitoes. Just to go back to our bird sighting of the blacksmith lapwing, Anna Marie was wondering a little bit about the naming of the birds. And Anna Marie, like myself, probably has always known them as plovers right up until a few years ago. And yes, Anna Marie, they have changed the name. They have dropped the name plover for the crowned lapwing, which again I always grew up as knowing as the crowned plover, and the blacksmith lapwing. But they haven't done away with the plover name completely. So the little three-banded plover that we see occasionally around the dams, much, much smaller than the other two, that is still officially referred to as a plover. They are both part of the same family. They are grouped together. Obviously, incredibly similar bird species. Now, the process of renaming has been one that's caused in certain circles a great deal of controversy, but the intention is to basically unify the terms used across the world for different species of birds. So, for example, my favorite example being the grey go-away bird, which I, throughout my childhood, always knew was a grey lory. I used to watch the grey lories in my garden, and it has taken me many years of getting that name wrong before grey go-away bird is said more readily than grey lory. There's lots and lots of bird species like that. So, Anna Marie, if you're anything like me, I still think of them as blacksmith plovers, and I still think of them as crowned plovers, but they are both lapwings. The name has changed in that respect. It's a tricky thing to relearn something that's become a complete habit. And of course, the biggest scandal at the moment, in a disagreement between Australia and South Africa, is the renaming of the acacia species to mimosa species. Now that is something that has caused far more controversy than the renaming of the bird species. I think we're all going to staunchly be defending the name acacia. I cannot imagine not calling our trees acacia trees. And of course now I'm looking for one to show you. Here we go. Are all acacia species. The most typical ones, I'm actually going to look at this one here. This one has been positively devoured by elephants, but it is coppicing. Those long white thorns are typical of most acacias, not all, but most. And I staunchly stand by calling them acacias. I'll have to do a bit more research into the actual scientific reason for that disagreement. This looks like it's a red acacia, just looking at the bark, the one with the delicious sweet sap that James is so fond of sampling. Now for us, the renaming of trees is a sensitive subject because our trees out here are exceptionally important to us. And Aqua was wondering if there are any trees with considerable cultural significance, for example, used for making different musical instruments. And yes, there are. There are lots of different trees that all have different significant purposes. This is one of the most important, the weeping wattle that's in front of us. Not quite, I think, the cultural significance, Aqua, that you were talking about. It is, in fact, used as toilet paper. But nevertheless, that is of cultural significance to most people around the world, to a certain extent. In terms of musical instruments, I can't think of any particular tree off the top of my head. However, there are certain tree species that are very important in terms of weapon making. And that, I think, is where you'll find, for most historical backgrounds, that's where you'll find a lot of emphasis placed, is on weaponry. So the leadwoods, the jackalberry or the African ebony, as well as the zebra wood, have all been used in the past and fashioned into spears, or what is traditionally known as a knobkerrie. Knobkerrie, like a walking stick that Brent's often used on bushwalk, and James also does, although his is a bit small to be classified as a knobkerrie. A walking stick with a big solid lump on the top that can be used as a weapon. So those are the main. You'll find it with most, I would say, most historical backgrounds. If you go back into it, either there's religious or there's warcraft culture around the types of use that you can put wood to. Leadwoods, of course, now protected because they are such useful building materials. And then there is cultural significance in terms of medicinal use. And that probably is the most important one for most of the trees out here. So, for example, the marula tree, it's used for a couple of reasons. A marula tree is dioecious. In other words, you get male marula trees and female marula trees, and they are incredibly important in certain fertility rituals. So if you want a boy and you are pregnant, you will concoct a broth made from the bark of a male marula tree, and then you'll take some of the branches from that marula tree and sleep with them under your pillow, and that in turn will present you with a boy. And in turn, if you want a girl, you can do the opposite thing, but with a female marula tree. Very easy to tell the difference between males and females in fruiting season. Only the females bear fruit. So that is one particular tree with a very solidly rooted traditional belief. Nyala berries or nyala trees, something that we don't see all that. I don't think there is one on Jeandre. If there is, it's very small and I haven't found it yet. But you do get them around the riverine areas of both the Sabi Sands and within Kruger. And those nyala trees are of enormous cultural significance in terms of making good luck potions from the bark. When you need that extra little bit of luck. Baobabs as well, with their bark, is also considered to be exceptionally good luck. So there are lots and lots of cultural beliefs attached to the trees. There's one more that is of tremendous importance, mainly in the Zulu culture, but it's not just the Zulu culture. And that is the buffalo thorn. And that, in terms of religious beliefs, is one of the most important. This buffalo thorn here, it's a bit of a tiny one, but with its zigzagged branches, it is meant to represent the trials and tribulations of life. I'm just going to hop out for 1 second and just show you what I mean by that, because this is a very, very important cultural belief. I took my shoe off. That's okay. Now this is where I'm going to prick myself at some point, trying to get this off for you. I just want a little piece. There we go. So the jagged nature of buffalo thorns are meant, as I said, to represent the trials and tribulations of life. But there's also incredible cultural significance in the shape of a buffalo thorn. It's got one hooked thorn and one curved thorn. And this is a very young branch that I've picked, so it doesn't show it as clearly. But its Afrikaans name is also waggebikkie. In other words, wait a little, because if you walk into one of these, you will have to wait a little before you can unhook yourself. But in traditional Zulu culture, the hooked thorn it plays a very important part of their death rituals. The hooked thorn is to grab the soul, and the straight thorn is to send it off on its journey into heaven or the afterlife or whatever particular belief you happen to have. And as a result, and I'm going to pop this back here, as a result, when a loved one dies far away from home, the Zulu people that go to collect their body will take a branch from the buffalo thorn with them, and they will treat that buffalo thorn branch as if it carries the soul of their departed. They'll book a seat on a bus or a plane, unlikely to be a plane journey if we're talking about the sort of the socio-economic situation where this will apply, but a bus, a train ticket, it will be put on a passenger seat. It's all a very, very important part of the whole burial ritual. So if I had to say, of all of the trees, the buffalo thorn is the most significant. As we draw to the end of our sunrise safari, I'm going to send you back across to James with another bird to show you.
We're just doing a little turnaround here, everybody. There were two interesting birds to show you, and then also a buffalo bull who Bryan and I feel looks like a celebrity. So we'll let you decide which celebrity you think this buffalo bull looks like. We have seen him a few times before. I just don't know that we've ever quite described him in this way we're about to. So before we go and have a look at the buffalo, they're all at the pan over there. Just thought I'd turn around here. We're now at the dam as opposed to the pan, the difference being a great big wall. I'm sorry, we're rolling around. That is a grey heron, everyone. And the grey heron is looking for mollusks and fish and frogs and even small insects. And he's not alone there, of course. He ate himself a water boatman, probably. He's got a friend, and the friend is the hardy-dar ibis. And you can see the different feeding strategy there. The hardy-dar ibis is probing in the mud for different things, probably snails, the odd worm, grubs, that sort of thing. But definitely probing as opposed to stealthily trying to catch something by either disturbing it with the mud, by kicking it out of the mud, or waiting for it to come up. There's also a three-banded plover there, but I can't see that anymore. All right, let's go and look at our celebrity buffalo. I'm too excited to see if anybody can decide if he looks like who we think he looks like. He's just around the corner here. So, well, I'm not going to give you any clues at all, actually. I'm just going to let you look, and you can tell me who you think he looks like. Bryan and I were completely unanimous in our decision. Young actor, male. That's all I'm going to say for now. Although actor's probably quite a strong term. Right, he's amongst this group here. Is that him in front? No, it's not. Wait, everybody. We'll just go around the corner here and we'll have a look-see. Sorry, I know you're very lovely, but please move out the way. Oh, there he is. They're perfectly framed by the tree there. All right, everybody, who does that look like? Which young celebrity actor does... I'm getting a case. Does that look like? We'll get some ideas from the final control as well. Any ideas, final control, who that looks like? He does have horns that come way over the top of his forehead. Can you believe it? Oh, I think they've had this, they've obviously heard it before in the final control. But the resemblance is quite uncanny. Some of you may well have heard us say this before. Chris, you think he looks like Donald Trump. I think that's an insult to that buffalo, personally. No, that's not who we were thinking of. I can definitely see what you mean, though, Chris. All right, so Bryan and I think... Oh, Debbie, you say Samuel L. Jackson. No, I don't think he looks like Samuel L. Jackson, Debbie, but maybe to you. Bryan and I think that he looks like Taylor Lautner from from Twilight. I don't know why, but he just gives us both that exact impression. There he is. So I'm not sure why that's so funny. And as Rebecca has asked me quite pointedly and very validly, why was I watching Twilight? Can't answer that question, I'm sorry. Right, Taylor, we're going to leave you having your morning constitutional here in the pan. I don't know why that's so funny either, but it really is hilarious. And we'll go on to quarantine clearings and see what's going on there. Here's a much more elegant old buffalo bull. Well, I think elegant is definitely the wrong word. But he's a much more sort of standard issue buffalo bull. Very good condition, you know. They really are in very fine nick. So this bit of rain that we've had and the grass flush that has come of it has really put them into some pretty good condition. No bones sticking out there. He's just solid muscle. Oh, hang on. Here comes another one. You can just see how completely individual they are as well. Oh, here comes Taylor. Taylor's running at high speed, everyone. Hello, fellows. Interestingly, all three of these in front of us are smaller than the big bull that walked past earlier. All right, that's going to be it from Bryan and I before we get a complete case of the giggles. Thanks, Bryan, for your efforts. Remember, we do need a mullet on the end of your thumb. A big thanks to the final control. We're going to hand you back to Jamie and Jeandre for the last few minutes, but just before we do that, thank you to all of you for talking to us, especially about the plants today. I found that very fascinating indeed. We'll see you this afternoon at 3:30. Until then, stay safe and see you later.
For the last few moments of our sunrise safari, I want to get you a view of a really stunning, very shiny blue wildebeest, not black wildebeest, sorry. I'd be very surprised if we saw a black wildebeest here. Just is persistently moving away from us. Unfortunately, we didn't quite get him in time when he was in the sun. But both the male impalas and the male wildebeest, as they come up to their rutting season, are in exceptionally good shape. That, of course, will not last, but it's as a result of those increased levels of testosterone, keeping them in good nick. They've fed up and bulked up for this mating season ahead. And the joyful thing about our live safaris is that we'll get to watch this entire process as it continues on, right through to the birth of the next wildebeest calves at the start of next year. A wonderful thing to be able to follow these stories for such a long period of time. Right, well, the lions gave us the slip this morning and managed to duck onto Simbambili, but there's always the possibility of them returning back to us this afternoon for the sunset safari. And as we come to the end, thank you, Jeandre, for your fantastic camera work, as always, as well as a big thank you to Rebecca and to Kirsty in Final Control. Most importantly, Thank you to all of our wonderful viewers out there for sending through your questions and your comments. Join us again for this afternoon's sunset safari. Let's see what we can find you. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we will see you then.